Welcome back to Church Public. I am Matt Odegaard. Today we have a couple of strange news stories. China bans Christ, which isn't actually surprising, but, well, they did it anyway. We have now you can identify as X on your passport. So if someone wants to identify you, you don't have to be male or female anymore. You can be X. We'll talk about that. And then finally, it seems like we're in the midst of a great state separation. What does that mean? And what does that mean for you? And where do you live in the midst of all of this? Welcome to Church Public. Let's get started. Well, welcome back to Church Public. I am Matt Odegaard, your host, and I am happy to be here with you. There is just a lot going on in the world, and I hope that you find some peace in it, knowing that God is, in spite of all the things that you see around you, still in control. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, but first, we just want to look at some of the weirder stories that I pulled up as I was looking around the internet. We'll look at 3 different things, and we'll go into those in just a moment. Before we get there, go ahead and like, subscribe, share this with one person if you can. I just want people to understand who Jesus is and how you can live in this world, because it is increasingly becoming more and more strange. I was talking to somebody this morning about foundations, and I think foundations are really, really important. I have this idea that's bouncing around in my head that I'm forming and I'll bring out at some point, but it just seems like, going back to Jesus, this isn't my idea, but Jesus calls himself the foundation, the cornerstone of God that we build on, and we need that. More and more, I'm seeing people try to build this whole idea, this ideology, this worldview, this religion, something based on whatever they think or feel or act, or even people on the right, even conservatives are making this mistake. They're just trying to say, well, these are the good values, so we should build our society on the good values. And I agree, but why they are the good values makes a big difference. If you say something is good just because it's good, or you think that it's good, you're going down the same path as everybody else. You're just behind a few steps. Instead, what is good has to be defined by something, and that something has to be outside of yourself. That foundation needs to be in Jesus. On Christ, the solid rock, I stand. That really can be the only place that we stand and build our foundation. If you build it on literally anything else, you're building it in the wrong place. And once that storm comes up, it's going to wash away all the sand underneath your feet, and you're going to find yourself in that weird cartoony place where your legs are moving and you're right at the top of the cliff, about to plummet to your doom. That's where most people are standing right now. And that bothers me, because I want people to understand what the truth is. We need to ask ourselves what the truth is, but that truth has to be based on some kind of foundation. It's not live your truth. It's not truth is truth. It's not love is love. It's not you do you. It's that there is a truth. Jesus is the truth, the way, the life. No one comes to the Father. Nobody gets to God. Nobody builds their foundation except for Jesus. There really is the only way. And that is seen as a non-loving thing in this current culture. And really, it has been a non-loving thing, appeared as a non-loving thing for all of time, for at least 2,000 years since Christ has been in the world, and even longer if you go back into the Old Testament and look at some of the ways that God and the Israelites kind of wandered around the world in the ancient Mideast. So we're going to look at that as well, because I want to go back to Romans. I've been spending a lot of time in Romans. I highly encourage you to spend a bunch of time in Romans as well. I'm going to try to keep bringing some of this to the foreground, because Romans, Paul, through writing this book to the Romans, who were much like us, like you and me, he writes this book, and it really helps us understand where we are personally, where we are as a culture, and where God wants us to be. It really does. It gives us a great idea of that, because this culture is going to take us off the cliff every single time. And the culture has done that to people every single time throughout history. This is nothing new. We're not experiencing anything new. Circumstances may be slightly different, but as Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. We're just repeating the same things over and over again. So Paul, in his letter to the Romans, gives us a great idea of how this world really is and our place in it. So we're going to look at another verse there in just a bit. But before we get to that, I want to talk about China, because, China. So here's the deal. China's going to be China, and we all know that. But I thought this was an interesting story. I thought it was a funny story, because China has banned Christ. And that's not even surprising, and it's not even really new, because they've banned Christianity really, in the most part, across the country for years now. But this is the funny part of it, that, and it's not funny, it's sad. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't like destroy my hope that, oh no, China has banned Christ, so now Christianity is doomed. No, it just makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because for anyone, nonetheless a country, to say they are bigger than God, it just makes me laugh, because I know God's sitting there going like, well, you may be a powerful country, but I'm still God. Anyway, that's how I think God views it. That's my version. That's not God's version, but I think there is evidence to view that through the scriptures. But so what has happened is they've banned the word Christ on social media. So this is just a funny story coming out of Christian headlines. Chinese law bans the word Christ on social media because it causes incitement. This is reading from the article on the Christian headlines. China has banned Christ and other religious words from social media apps under new policy that went into effect on March 1st. According to this report, the policy requires licensing and training to post Christian and religious content on the internet. My goodness, I love this so much. I love this story. It's fantastic. So, I'm sorry. So you better get yourself some training on how to post religious content. It's not like, and for those audio listeners, I appreciate you. If you're watching on video, you see that I'm holding up a Bible, and the Bible has words in it. If you haven't opened it for a while, there's words in it, and there's scriptures, that are about God and about circumstances and about life and about humanity and all the things in life, right? So you need to get training in order to post Christian or religious content. Not like, hey, I could look at a verse and then post that verse. No, silly human. You are not smart enough to read the Bible and quote the Bible and post Bible verses. You must have specific training in China in order to post these. I just think that's funny. So this, and here's a great like Orwellian term. This is the new law. Measures for the administration of internet religious information services. That's such a great. If you haven't read Orwell's 1984 for a while, that would fit right in. It's great. It's right in there. It prohibits individuals and organizations from posting religious information on the internet unless they have first obtained permission from a provincial government department. And I love this. According to China Aid, which monitors religious freedom. Okay, so what happened was this church got in trouble because let's see, they tried to post some books for their reading group. So this group, Early Rain Church in China, tried to post books like titles like Defense of the Faith by Cornelius Van Til, good book. Tradition and Individual Talent by T.S. Eliot, also good book, and The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, fantastic book. A little oldie in the words, but fantastic. You should definitely read those. So the social media app WeChat rejected the post, saying the word Christ is not allowed. So in that case, they're not even quoting Bible verses about Christ. They're saying, hey, here's a book that you should read. It has Christ in the title. I'm sorry, that is not allowed. You're not allowed to post the word Christ or books with the word Christ in the title. This is just a fantastic story, and it's sad. It's sad because you should be able to say whatever you want to say. Of course, in communist China, we know that's not true and hasn't been true for a long time. But it just is interesting to note that they're literally banning Christ from China, and I thought that was interesting. Here's let's see. This is a quote from apparently the CCP. Anyone who posts content with the purpose of inciting state power using religion, objecting to the Chinese Communist Party's leadership, obstructing the socialism system, damaging national reunification, and harming the unity of various ethnic groups and social stability shall be punished. And then clong. That's what I hear. I hear. I'm sorry, I don't have sound effects today. I hear a big like clong. That's what happens when you try to say like, you should know about Christ. Clong. Someone comes by and claps you on the head or something. And I'm making light of it. It's sad because that's actually what's happening here. And if you're in China, I do feel bad. And believe it or not, I do pray for those Christians in China because they undergo incredible persecution. And it's not funny. It's ironic that people in America on a certain side of things continuously say how persecuted and oppressed they are when people literally are being, who knows, because they're not going to tell us what the CCP is doing, but taken away, jailed. I know several pastors who have been jailed for preaching. And and saying now the word Christ. We'll get you into that place. One final thing on this. The word Christ also falls into the following categories: pornography, gambling, drug abuse, and excessive marketing, apparently. So telemarketers beware. But it's so ironic that Christ as a word and other religious words about God, God specifically, the Christian God or Judeo-Christian God, not, or the Muslim God, because they don't like Muslims either. But anyway, fills right in with pornography and gambling and drug abuse. Like, this country is out to lunch. And again, it doesn't, I'm not dishopeful because of these things, because God is still God and God is still in control, and you're not going to out God governments, even if you try. And I know you're trying, and I know you're really trying to hold on to this power that you think you have. But again, God is still God. I just thought that was an interesting story. Speaking of interesting stories, this goes on with our gender confusion and creation of new realities and world order. I don't even know what to say about this anymore, but now you can officially decide that you are gender X on your passports. So you don't have to be male, you don't have to be female, you can be gender X as a marker, as a United States citizen. And a couple other countries are doing this too, but I think it is interesting that United States, who ostensibly was a mainline Western country promoting Western values in the Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian tradition, has now left the farm, and you can just be gender X. It's like some kind of, X-Man superhero or mutant or something, but now you're gender X, so you don't have to be male or female. I just want to ask, this is rhetorical, so you don't have to answer, but you can yell at your screen if you want to. What is a passport for? Again, let's get down to foundations. I like to ask why. I like to ask, why are we doing this? Or what's the point of this? What is a passport for? Passport is for identification, verification of who you are, especially when you travel outside of the country. United States passport. You generally don't need a United States passport within the country of America, because within states, you don't need a passport to travel. You don't even need an identification sometimes to travel between states. But when you leave the country, you need to present this identification in the form of a passport. So what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to confirm that you are who you say you are. Now, ostensibly, realistically, visually, pretty much everyone can tell, there's some variance there. But once you look at a person, you can say, oh, that's a man or a woman. I know you're not allowed to say that on the internets anymore, but it's just real, right? So this passport now, when the passport checker, who is outside of America, right, because we're traveling outside of America to a country that doesn't believe in this gender ideology, is now going to look and see that you are not male or female, you have an X on your passport. How's that going to go? How are they going to verify your identification? Are you going to take this passport with an X instead of a male or female to somewhere like Iran or Iraq or Afghanistan? Like, they don't look kindly on this kind of thing. I'm not even talking for me. I'm just talking for you, for your health and safety. Is this a good idea? Is it a good idea to do this to yourself by, and I mean, maybe you're not planning to travel to countries that are not affirming to this kind of lifestyle, but this seems like a really poor choice just in terms of other countries that don't think in this weird gender confused way. This is a really big problem. And first of all, America should never have agreed to this silliness. But beyond that, like, this does not help. And so I do want to highlight this person who commented about it. And I sometimes struggle with pronouncing names, so this is difficult for me. So I'm gonna first spell this person's name and then try to pronounce this person's name. So this person, Dana, is the first name, so I think I'm getting that right. And the last name is ZZYYM. ZZYYM. Zm. I got nothing. Anyway, this person, Zm, who sued the State Department over the lack of gender options and adding this X to it, says, this is great news for all intersex and non-binary people, because now it says we can get our passports. Because apparently you could not get a passport before if you didn't identify as male or female, which surprises me, because it doesn't seem like they would say, I won't give you a passport. I've gotten a passport several times. I've gotten passports for my kids, and I felt my wife, who was a Canadian and became an American, like, I've been through the passport and the immigration process. I've been through a lot of different processes in the federal government as it relates to this. And the questions are, do you love America? Like, do you hate America? Are you here legally? Like, those are the questions. And sure, there's a male-female question, but Anyway, that's a weird statement. But then it goes on, and this person goes on and says, we can just be ourselves, which I, again, we'll leave that, because this final statement is the one that I want to camp on. This person, Zism, says, we don't have to lie to get our passports. This is the one that kind of hit me sideways, and the reason we need to even talk about this story, because ostensibly it's just a ridiculous story on its outset. Because, again, as I mentioned, you need a passport. You should be able to get a passport if you're in any sense a legal human in America. But why would you change it to not be male or female when you need identification to go to another country that isn't going to support this kind of thing? But we don't have to lie to get our passports. That quote to me it's just fairly fascinating. And the reason it's fascinating is, what is the lie? Is the lie that I'm not male or female? Like, is the lie that you have to lie to say you are either male or female? Like, that's the perspective of this person, right? That I'm not male or female, so I have to lie and say I'm either male or female. Is that really the lie here? Is the lie really that you're not male or female? Or is the lie that there is only male or female and you do have to choose? And in fact, that's even the wrong language. You don't have to choose. You are who you are. This is back to Genesis 1:27. Again, God created them, male or female. He created them. It is a dichotomy, like and it's not even a choice. It's who you are. It's who you were created to be. We are made in the image of God, male and female. He created them. Again, Genesis 1:27. So is the lie that you're not that, or is the lie that you are that, and you're trying to lie your way out of this idea, this perspective, this new gender ideology that says you can be whatever you want to be, which is why we get into the pronoun argument, and we get into this weird pronoun argument where I saw one the other day where it was fish. Your pronoun can be fish or fish self. I can't even say that right. I'm not joking. This isn't even hyperbole. You can be fish self. I talked a while back. You can do the demon and demon self. These are real pronouns. And they're not real pronouns. They're pronouns that people are choosing for themselves. They're not real pronouns. I mean, even the inauspicious they pronouns for a singular person just doesn't make sense, because you're a singular person. You don't get to be a plural of persons, unless, of course, you have identity disorder, in which case there's more going on. Anyway, this whole passport thing, it's just a problem. Again, it gets me back to Romans, this time Romans 1:25. They exchange the truth about God for a lie. That's the simplest and cleanest way I can say it. That's why when this person says, I don't have to lie anymore and I can be who I really am, I feel like that was actually the lie, not the lie that I'm either a man or a woman. But that's just me talking. I guess these individuals identify as other things like fish or rabbits. I forgot about the rabbit self. That was one. Or bunny self. I'm not making fun. I'm not trying to make fun. It's really a problem, but we're engaging in this problem and empowering this problem when we lie about this. That's what's really important. And that leads me to what I think is the great state separation. And I want to get to that in a second. But before I get there, I want to read this part from Romans. Because, again, in Romans, I think it's really important. And this is a verse. There's a lot about Romans that is difficult. And most of Romans is difficult for this culture. And the reason is Romans calls out what is real and what is not. And sometimes that's hard, because we've heard that love is love. But love is not love. Love is a lie. Love has to be real. God is real. God is love. And God is truth. So love cannot be a lie. If you are lying, that is not love. I hope this makes sense to you. If you're listening to this, it's probably making sense to you. Otherwise, you've already thrown your device out the window at me at this point, which I feel bad about. But if you're still listening, thank you. So this is to Romans 12. And I came across this verse and just wanted to expound on it a little bit. This is a great passage, Romans 12:9 and forward. There's a great passage for you to read because it summarizes this really, really well. This first verse, Romans 12:9, says, love must be sincere. Some translations have genuine. In other words, love must be real. Love has to be real. What does that mean? Because we're told love is love. And that's mush mouth and googly pants. It's like it doesn't mean anything. Love is love doesn't mean anything. You can't define something by its definition. I know people keep trying to do that. Like racism is racism. How do you know what racism is? Because it's racism. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything because you just define something by itself. Love is the same. You can't define love by love. Love has to have a definition. Here's a great definition. And if you want a definition as well, Paul, in another letter to the Corinthians, gives a really long list for love that many people have used for weddings and such. But this is Paul to the Romans. Love must be sincere. But here's the next part of the same sentence. Again, go and read this. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Hate what is evil? Wait a minute, Paul. We're not supposed to hate. We're supposed to love, right? That's what you're sitting there saying. Like, love is love. We're supposed to love, show love your neighbor, all the love, all you need is love, all of these things, right? Well, that's really more the Beatles than the Bible. And that's a problem. Paul says, love must be sincere, love must be genuine, love must be real, so hate what is evil. Wait, I thought we weren't supposed to hate. Why? Why are you not supposed to hate? We talked yesterday about Jesus going into the temple and flipping over the tables because he was righteously angry at the people that were taking advantage of other people trying to worship God. Why? Was that an act of love? Yes. But what is that expression? That expression is, if there is something good, that means there must be something evil. And Paul is saying there is evil in this world. And we know, we can just look out and see that there is evil in this world. Does he say hate who is evil or whom is evil? No. We're not supposed to hate people. We're not supposed to hate people at all. And he even goes on to say, like, you need to love people. He even goes on to say, don't repay evil for evil. And don't take revenge. That's the Lord's work to take revenge. It's not yours. But we need to understand that love needs to be real, and we need to not approve of the things that are not real, not love. Lies are not loving. That's just the reality of it, and we need to watch out for that. This society, this generation, this culture will not tell you that, but that is the reality of the foundation when it is built on God, who is love, who cannot stand evil. That's why Romans goes through and says, you can't make it into the kingdom of heaven on your own. You can't. Nobody can. Nobody. That's it. And yet, that's why we have Jesus going up to this Easter weekend. That's why Easter is so important and such a great thing, that we have Easter, and because of Jesus, because of his life, his death, his resurrection, we have life, and bigger than that, we have connection to God for eternity. That's really, 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 really important. But you cannot lie your way into paradise. You cannot lie your way into happiness. It's just not possible. The lies will only make you more and more unhappy. That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve are sitting there, and the devil says, well, you're not really going to die if you eat this fruit. And Eve goes, all right. And again, lie after lie after lie. That's what the devil does, is lie. And he gets you to lie, and he gets you to believe the lie, and he gets you to lie to other people. I was talking about this the other day. Joe Biden, on his Trans Day of Visibility, said that everyone is made in the image of God. Yes, 100%. What does the rest of that Genesis 1:27 verse say? Man is made in the image of God, male and female, he created them. And he was quoting that on Trans Day of Visibility, saying we're made in the image of God. And his conclusion was, so we should empower kids to medically and physically transition into something else. No, the verse says male and female, he created them. You're made in the image of God, so you're made male or female. It just drives me crazy. Like, if you're going to quote the Bible, first of all, quote the Bible, and get the context right. That context is totally 100% backwards. And that's the problem here. And we need to understand that. And that leads me to this great state separation. And I think I see this going on. And I think you might see it going on too. The administration, the government is pushing us a certain way, but states individually are pushing, and they have taken sides, more or less, all across America. And we're seeing this. And of course, we saw this through Disney and Florida. You see, Florida is taking a stand, and they're saying, don't indoctrinate my kids in radical sexual and gender ideology. And don't endanger my children with these ideologies. Other states have signed on for that. I just looked up a quick list. I mean, Alabama is doing a measure on classroom instruction in sexual and gender ideology. Arizona is doing something similar. Georgia, Iowa, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Ohio, Texas. There are a lot of bills and legislation coming out and saying our children are ours, the parents, and not the state's. The state doesn't have a right to tell kids what they are, like physically what they are. This gets into that whole gender confusion that we were just talking about a moment ago. And then on the other side, there's another side. And I'm not going to read through this whole list, but you have states like California, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Vermont, New York, who have radical gender ideology legislation in place or coming. And then many of those same states on both sides of this have abortion laws, either for abortion, like radically for abortion. California has said it wants to be an abortion sanctuary where they're paying people to come to California just to have an abortion. And then you have states like Texas and Oklahoma just signed some legislation. Florida is working on some legislation banning abortion in almost all cases. So you have these two sides, this great state separation. They're moving in different ways, and people are moving in different ways, physically moving to some of these states where you either have more freedom in these things or less, depending on what side of the issue you're on. And this is really what I want to talk about. And I don't know the end of this. I don't know where this goes, but I know that we cannot sustain both of these ideologies in the same place and call it one country. That's just not the way the world works. It is going to implode at some point. And again, I'm not worried about it. I know that God is still God and God is still in control. And I like the fact that some people are taking a stand and having courage, even in legislation, and saying you can and should legislate morality. And in fact, as I've argued many times, you can check out at churchpublic.com, all laws are moral and all laws legislate morality. All of them, every single one of them. I've had people argue me that, and I've never had a good counter to that. All laws do legislate morality, and both sides know it. The left knows it more, and they've been working on legislating morality for a long time with feminist laws, with Roe versus Wade, with Obergefell, all these different things we could point to. And finally, I mean, after literally decades from whence Roe originated, finally the right is stepping in and saying, hey, laws are there for a reason, and you don't want to be authoritarian, and you don't want to crush people down like the left is doing, but you want to say, hey, laws are for protection. How do we protect our parents? How do we protect our children? How do we stop these radical and permanent and debilitating gender transitions in children with medical and physical means? These are not good for society. Like, in any way are these good for society? And I'm not even the biggest believer in statistics, but the statistics bear this out. There is no study that shows after these transitions that kids are in better mental health capacity, or I know that the administration is pointing to studies, but I haven't seen them. They don't exist as far as I've seen. All of the studies show that depression goes up, suicide goes up. I mean, it is terrible. It is literally terrible. It's heartbreaking what this world is doing to the next generation. And I applaud some of these states that are standing up and saying, no, stop. And I think that's important. And for some reason, for many, many years, conservatives especially have been reticent to use legislation to do these things. And I am happy that we're doing it. But this gets me back to this great state separation. Things are happening and the states are separating. And you have the states on the coast and some others that are going off in a very leftward direction. And you have states that are going more in a conservative direction. So what is going to happen with that? And that's an answer that I don't have. I'm studying it. I'm thinking about it. I'm praying about it. I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out what is the end of this. And I don't know. I don't know what the end of this is. I don't have a lack of hope. I know that God is still in control. I know that things are still progressing to that day, as glorious as it will be when Jesus comes and there will be a new heaven and a new earth. In the meantime, we need to act faithfully, walk humbly, love and pursue justice, but actual justice, not this weird social justice brand that we're sold by all of these institutions. So how do we do that? I think it starts in the families. Recently, I was made aware of something that I would say I was saying wrong. Not necessarily wrong, but I've been referring to families as a nuclear family. And that's just, mom, dad, child, right? Nuclear family. I like that definition, but I realized as I was listening to somebody else talk about this, it's not complete. And the reason it's not complete is it's based on this idea of biology. It's based on this idea of manufacturing something that makes a society. Instead, what I like better is a natural family, because that refers back to God's plan. It refers back to nature. It refers back to creation that God intended for good. And when God says, be fruitful and multiply, that is the creation order that God intended in his kingdom on this earth. That is the natural family. So I'm going to begin referring to it as the natural family. And then it helps us understand that there is a natural and there is an unnatural. And that gets back to Romans 1 when God says, well, I gave you over to your unnatural desires. You wanted this, well, you get it. But here are the consequences of it. We are now living in the consequences of that, because for a long time, as conservatives, as Christians or whatever, we've just sat in the back, sat on our couches and said, well, you do you. Freedom is free. You do whatever you want. We can't do that anymore. We have to call a lie a lie. Because the more lies that come out, the more lies will happen. This is what we tell our kids, right? The more you lie, the easier it is to lie. Actually, that's what we should tell everybody, because it's just true. If you keep lying, you're going to be able to lie more, because you harden your heart, you cancel out that conscience inside of you that you should have, and you allow yourself to lie more. We're at a society, we're at a cultural level that I think we've actually tipped over the brink, that we all just accept that a lie is a lie, and we move on with the day and we don't really care. We should care. We should care about the babies that are being killed. We should care about the kids that are being mutilated by these policies. Like, we should care. This should really upset us as followers of God, because it goes against God's plan. And this is where, Paul says, it's not ours to take revenge. It's not ours to take vengeance. So I'm not proposing that at all, but we need to pray. We need to talk. We need to say true things. And as Paul says, hate what is evil because of love. Not in spite of love. Those don't exist in a vacuum. You cannot love unless you understand that there is something to love, and that love has to come from God, and it comes through you. And they should know us as Christians by our love, and that's really, really hard. I'm not saying hate anyone. Hear me very clearly. I'm not saying hate anyone. We should absolutely not. We should love people. But we should love them so much that we won't tolerate their lies. When they come up and say, hey, this is true about me, and you look and say, but it's not, we should figure out how to lovingly say, like, I love you, and I love you so much that if you hate me for saying the truth, I can take that, because it's worth it to me to not let you live in the lie that you've created for yourself. That's a really hard place to be, and most people do not have the courage to stand up in that, but we should, and we should try to do it more. So I hope that you do. Have courage, stand up, speak boldly the truth in grace and love to those that need to hear it, because God is love, and love must be true. So God bless you. God bless your family. I hope that this Easter finds you well. And as always, I hope that you keep the faith. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. And I just wanted to say that I will be speaking live at Antrim Brethren in Christ Church on April 24th. So if you can get there, it is in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. I would love to see you. I'd love to say hi. We will be talking about Disney and their war on children. More information will be available at Antrim BIC or churchpublic.com. As always, God bless. See ya.